On paper, if you compare the camera hardware on the Google Pixel 9 Pro Fold to that of the OnePlus Open, you have a clear, definitive winner with the OnePlus Open. What we're going to try to do in this video is find out what actually happens in practice. We're going to go through each camera module on both of these phones, take a bunch of pictures, compare them, break them down. We're going to start off with what I think is the most boring part of this, and that is selfies. We're starting off with the cover display camera on the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. You'll be able to see the phone right here on this side, as well as other just general metadata. And this is a pretty typical Pixel selfie shot. I don't really have a whole lot to say about this. Switching over to the OnePlus Open, it does look fairly different, right? And this is why these photo comparisons get really interesting, because OnePlus has a particularly different sort of processing look to their photos. It almost has this sort of hazy look going on when you compare it to the Pixel. I don't know, maybe hazy isn't the right word, but it's definitely warmer, and there's a different look to the contrast. I personally really like what OnePlus does with their processing. Your mileage may vary on that. If we go to portrait mode, you'll see that, like a lot of cameras, it's going to struggle a bit with the runaway hairs on my head, but the blur looks pretty decent otherwise. With the OnePlus Open, it's the same sort of thing going on. These hairs are going to be a bit of a problem, still maintaining that warmer look and that difference in the contrast. Now, of course, both of these devices have a selfie camera here and another selfie camera on the inside. With the Pixel, it's the same sensor, so I'm not going to show you both of those. With the OnePlus Open, it is a different sensor, so I will, in fact, show you both on that one. So this is the internal camera on the OnePlus Open, and strangely enough, to me, that does actually look quite different. You don't have quite the same processing as you have on the cover display. This looks pretty darn different to me, so that is an interesting little find as well. And with portrait mode, it's a very similar situation, but again, it does look a bit different. I would say, though, that if you're taking selfies on these cameras, yes, the actual selfie cameras are quite good, but you can also open them up, use this display as your viewfinder, and then take that selfie with your primary sensor, and we're going to look at those next. So using the primary camera on the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, obviously we have some pretty solid detail. The beard hair test is going to be passed on all of these going to the OnePlus Open. It just looks so different. And again, like I'm going to probably say a lot through this video, if you like the way OnePlus Open photos look, you're gonna love these shots. They just sort of have this moodier look to them that I really, really enjoy. And that is part of what has made it kind of difficult to go away from the OnePlus Open. These cameras are just really good. Portrait mode, similar affair, a bit better here on the hair flyaway test, but overall very similar shot. And on the OnePlus Open, same kind of things going on. Nothing too remarkable there other than just those pretty sizable differences in just the overall tone of the photos. Let's turn our attention, though, to non-human subjects. So again, starting with the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, we have a photo of this tree in my backyard, and I think that this is a pretty good start for the Pixel. We don't have a lot of noise or grain in the darker areas here. The colors look very, very natural. Detail looks pretty good as well. The sky looks pretty natural. The fence, the color is accurate. We go to the OnePlus Open. This looks really, really similar. The only thing that I'm going to point out to you is just the way that the darker areas look. Pay attention to this darker shadowy area. Perhaps in this area is probably the best place to illustrate it. It kind of has this slightly brightened look to it. If we go back to the Pixel, let's see if I'm crazy. Yes, it definitely does look brighter on the OnePlus Open, and I think that that is partially what is responsible for the OnePlus camera kind of having this sort of lower contrast look. You could also say that the Pixels maybe overdo the contrast. They're very, very dynamic in their dynamic range, and the OnePlus phone kind of dials that back a bit. I actually do continue to like that. It is a difference, though, between these two. I don't think that there's a clear winner here. They both look really good. The detail is really solid on both of them as well. Maybe the detail is better. Is the detail better on the OnePlus Open? Let's actually go back to the Pixel again. I don't know. It's really, really similar. I would call this too close to call. It's going to come out of your personal preference. Very minor differences. Quick shot of a basketball in the backyard. Maybe we'll take a look at some of the dimples on the ball itself to kind of register some of the detail. Very, very detailed. I think that the colors look pretty natural. Jumping to the OnePlus Open, things are definitely brighter and greener. I don't think there's a clear winner in terms of detail on this one either. They look quite similar to me, although maybe in this grass here, let's go back. I do think the OnePlus might be doing a bit better with some of these details. The Pixel does tend to have an over-sharpened look sometimes, and I think that we're definitely starting to pick up a little bit of that here, but I will say that I like the overall color of the Pixel a little bit better. They're actually leaning a bit warmer than they used to, and I actually like that. Stepping inside into some less optimal lighting situations, we'll zoom in a little bit on Spider-Man here. Looks like he's in nice focus. Pay attention to the way it's handling these little lights, though, when we switch over to the OnePlus Open. They're much more sort of blooming. They're much more, not quite blown out. They just look bigger. They look fuzzier compared to what the Pixel is doing, kind of reining them in. And I would say that the Pixel looks a bit more accurate, whereas this is maybe a bit more of a fun picture. If we zoom in on Spider-Man, pretty decent in terms of the focus, but I will say we kind of have almost like a magenta shift to this that isn't quite accurate compared to the Pixel, which does keep things a bit closer to reality. This next image is going to really demonstrate a difference between these two devices. So the Pixel is keeping things pretty accurate. It's trying to expose things in a natural way. If we zoom in down here into what could be a slightly darker area, I can read the numbers on the dial. The detail looks good. Not a whole lot of grain. The exposure on each bulb in this looks pretty good. The Open does something very, very different, and you might like this. I actually do like this because it just has that moodier look, but this is warmer than it should be, and this is definitely darker than it should be. So it's doing some sort of inconsistent things, and I think that would be my biggest problem with the OnePlus Open, is that it isn't as consistent as the Samsung phones out there or the Google phones out there. When it hits, it absolutely crushes. The problem is sometimes it does weird stuff, and you might not always like that, whereas the Pixel, it's going to be pretty consistent. I'll give you one more shot that kind of encapsulates that inconsistency aspect of the OnePlus Open. Here with the Pixel, things are very, very natural and very, very accurate. You can see that he was actually just sleeping. He lifted his head up and had a lip stuck down there, making him make this sort of frowny face. It's pretty detailed, and this is not great lighting in the living room, okay? So we switch to the OnePlus Open, and the shot looks completely different. This is not the color that my couch actually is. It's not nearly this sort of reddish. It's not nearly this warm. It does look like he's a little bit blurry because he was moving, or maybe when I took the shot, I was moving just a little bit. And I literally held the two phones at the same time and hit the shutter at the exact same time, and that was the result. We just don't have that motion blur, and we also don't have the colors being quite this inaccurate. Into some lower light, but also up quite close to an object. There's basically one thing in this shot and the next shot that I want you to kind of pay attention to, because this looks quite good, and the OnePlus Open looks quite good as well. But start to notice the depth of field. Right here on the back of Charizard's head, it's actually starting to lose focus a little bit because you have a larger sensor with the OnePlus Open, and so you have that shallower depth of field. Notice the detail on this sort of grid pattern behind. It's more in focus here than it is here. Also notice that in the lower light, the OnePlus device is struggling to get the colors accurate once again. This color's wrong, this color's wrong, this is getting it much more accurate. Another place where the OnePlus phone can be a bit inconsistent is with movement, and I want to illustrate that with a couple of images. So first off, outside in really good lighting, Jet running towards the camera, the Pixel does a reasonably good job of keeping her mostly in focus. If we go to the OnePlus phone, it actually does a really good job, and you could say that it might actually be a little bit better than the Pixel. But what's strange is as soon as the lighting starts to degrade a little bit, things go off the rails for the OnePlus phone. What I did here is I set up a tripod and I tried to roll a ball across the table at a consistent speed. This is what the Pixel came up with just straight out of the box. The OnePlus phone, when I tried to do the same thing, I actually had to do it multiple times because I would tap the shutter when the ball was in the middle, and most of the shots, the ball was not even on the table anymore because it was so delayed. I managed to finally capture one way over here, but that is obviously much worse. Now, the good news is there is an action mode on the OnePlus Open, and if you turn that on, you manage to get something that is much more similar to what you get from the Pixel Fold. You just have to remember to tick that box whenever you're going to take a picture of something that's moving, and maybe you've moved inside and you don't have a lot of light like I did with that initial photo of Jet. Let's take a look at the wide angle lens now. This is the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, and you can tell that, things like exposure kind of go out the window. These lamps are super blown out. Definitely a lot more grain and noise on the fringes. With the OnePlus Open, let's jump over to that. It does look like it is slightly narrower in terms of its field of view. Definitely is, but it's doing better on the exposure on these lamps, and I think that there's also a little bit less noise and grain. It is definitely warmer, though. This color is not accurate. That is not nearly that warm. So a little bit of a mixed bag here. Maybe you like the wider field of view on the Pixel, but maybe the exposure bugs you, maybe the noise bugs you, but you go to the OnePlus. I think that's maybe the more overall pleasing photo, but the colors aren't necessarily accurate. Like I said, a little bit of a mixed bag there. Stepping outside with the Pixel Fold, and it's doing a pretty good job. I'm not really going to nitpick these wide angle shots. You kind of know what they are. If I go to the OnePlus Open, looks very similar. It's definitely a little bit brighter, it looks like. Definitely a little bit brighter, but again, I'm not really going to nitpick these too much. One cool thing that you can actually do with that wide angle lens, though, is use it for macro photos. So this is a macro photo taken with the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. These colors look very accurate. Details look pretty good on the inside of this rose. If I switch to the OnePlus Open, it didn't quite focus on the inside there, and these colors are definitely not accurate at all. We zoom in right here, you can kind of use your imagination. The detail is not the problem, right? Like if it had a focus where I was intending on it to focus, it's very bright outside, it's hard to see my phone. The details are fine. It's the color temperature that is going to be very different and very off with the OnePlus Open. Let's talk about zoom. Now, this is going to be slightly weird and complicated because these two devices have different zoom capabilities. So I'm just going to tell you what I'm showing you. This is a 2x digital zoom on the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, okay? And if we zoom in, you can see that it looks okay, but you can definitely tell that we are in subpar lighting conditions and that we are doing a digital zoom. The detail is not particularly good, but that is, if you use your Pixel Fold, that is one of the default zooms on the camera. It goes 1, 2, and 5, so we are doing 2. If we go to the OnePlus Open, this is a 3x optical zoom. Now, on the OnePlus Open, it does show you 1, 2, 3, and 6 as your options here. 2 is digital, 3 is optical. I could have done 2 versus 2, and maybe I should have, but I'm trying to kind of cut down how many different photos I need to be looking at. And I think that most people, when they're zooming on the OnePlus Open, they're not going to do 2x digital. They're going to jump to the 3x optical because it's going to look much better. And as you can see here, it does look much better. This is the 5x zoom on the Pixel Fold. Now, this does switch to optical, and you can see that the quality has jumped up a dramatic amount. This looks pretty solid. It's not incredible, again, not in the best lighting, but it does look pretty solid. This is the 6x on the OnePlus Open. So we're taking that 3x sensor, it's fairly high resolution, and we're punching it in even further. So we are zoomed in a bit more than the Pixel, but I think that the Pixel has managed to resolve more detail. Look at the Spider-Man logo on his chest. I think that the Pixel is actually resolving more detail. Stepping outside, again, this is 2x digital on the Pixel Fold. Obviously, much better lighting. That's pretty darn fuzzy, though. On the OnePlus Open, with a optical zoom of 3x, things are definitely cleaned up a decent amount. That's actually really impressive in terms of how much detail that is managing to keep in. If we jump to 5x on the Pixel Fold, though, we have jumped back up and we're looking really good, really nice detail there from the Pixel. And going to 6x on the OnePlus Open, I would say that is really close. Maybe in good lighting, the OnePlus Open is at least right there with the Pixel, potentially even better, but man, that might be too close to call. And one more here for both devices, 5x on the Pixel Fold. This looks very good, very natural, and the OnePlus Open this time has done its sort of low contrast. Another instance where, for me, the OnePlus phone does something that might not be the most accurate, but I like the way that it looks. Problem is with OnePlus phones, at least in this instance, they're not super duper consistent. Like I've said before, when they hit, they absolutely crush for me, but they just do weird things sometimes. Sometimes the colors just look very strange and off, and sometimes they look really great, and sometimes they don't look that great. That's kind of the thing with these phones. So we are shooting 4K 30 FPS on both devices. Stabilization is whatever the default is, so pay attention to that stabilization. Pay attention to the color reproduction, the detail, the sound of my voice, all that stuff as I switch back and forth between these two different phones. Let me know which one you think is doing a better job in the comments down below. So this is a really tough one, and this is maybe as succinctly as I can put it. If you want something that's going to be really, really consistent, it's just going to do what you expect it to do, and it's going to be pretty darn good at everything, the Pixel is probably the way to go. And this year, with improved low light performance, improved in terms of grain and noise in the photos, improved in terms of the zoom quality, improved in terms of the fact that it's a little bit warmer than it used to be, which is subjective, but I like it. I don't think you're going to have many substantial complaints. If you want a device that occasionally is an absolute rock star, but occasionally also just falls flat on its face in terms of movement, in terms of like that rose photo where the colors just went absolutely wild. Sometimes your colors are just going to be bizarre with this thing. If you're okay with that, in order to get those really high heights, maybe you're okay with a bit more editing, maybe you just like the way that the processing looks on this thing, you might go this way. I genuinely don't know which one of these camera systems I like better. There's part of me that says the Pixel is safer. I'm going to have fewer unusable shots, and that is really, really important. But I also really adore the way that sometimes the Open photos end up looking. I'm going to need more time with both of these cameras just going forward to really tell you which one I like better. But in the past, I would have told you I think that the Open is a little bit better right now with what we have with the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. I don't think I can definitively say that. At worst, I think that they really trade punches. And when you go into the other lenses, the Ultrawide and the Telephoto, I just don't think that there's a super clear, obvious winner for me. But I want to hear from you guys in the comments down below. Which one do you think did better? You saw the samples. Let me know your thoughts in those comments down below, guys. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content just like this. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.